We do now officially have games back on the NBA schedule. The NBA and Players Association released a joint statement today announcing that games will resume tomorrow. But what's even more important are the efforts the league and players are taking together to ramp up not just their words, but their actions on social justice issues. Here are the key points of that statement. The league will form a social justice coalition in conjunction with the players. The governors, that means the team owners of each team, will work with local officials to convert as many arenas as possible into voting centers. And the league will also promote voting information throughout advertising during the playoffs. So I want to dig into all of that a little bit more. Let's see Marc's not back with us yet. But Perk, why don't you tell us a little bit about your interest in this? Because I know you've been working with LeBron and the More Than a Vote campaign. Why do you think that voting is what sort of came out of these 3 days of conversations?
Well, I think when you look at it, Rachel, it's the relationships. And when they went into the meeting, the players probably were saying, what could we do right now? What could we get our owners to do? What can we present to them? And the smart thing was that to present, trying to help, voting, getting voting right, for the simple fact that when you think about it, all these owners have these relationships. They have relationships with the governors, the senators, the mayors, anybody that's in these offices and dealing in the political world. And I thought that they did a great job with strategizing, the NBA players did, and the Players Association, in limited time to figure out something that they could present to the owners that made sense, that they could act rapidly on, and this was part of it.
Perk, absolutely. I think we do have Marc Spears back with us now. Marc, welcome. And, the statement that we're talking about focuses a lot on voting and on tangible action. How did they arrive at that point after these 3 days of discussions?
Yeah, to Perk's point, I think they wanted something that they could do now. They, as you know, Rachel, over the last couple of days, I think the players had the weight of the world of them and trying to solve everything. So they're like, what could we do now that we could make an immediate change? It's voting. And they need to work within themselves now because only about 20% of them are registered. So what they're doing is trying to league-wide get every arena available to vote. Obviously, this is in the United States. This includes 28 arenas. And if a deadline passed where you cannot use that arena for voting purposes, they still want to be used in some fashion or form to help voting. So they're putting their efforts toward that, and they're also putting their efforts towards police reform, which they feel like in this short amount of time, they can make some immediate impact.
All right, so I want to follow up on two things you said. First, with you just casually mentioned that only 20% are registered, but that really stuck out to me in your reporting, Marc. When you were giving the TikTok of what had happened in that Wednesday night emotional meeting, you reported that Chris Paul got up in front of the group, looked around at everyone and said a version of "you want change?" Well, only 20% of you are registered to vote. Is that from a union survey? What was that conversation?
Well, Chris Paul has been able to get every member of the Thunder registered to vote, and I think he's privy to information league-wide.
Sure.
And so, yeah, that was certainly embarrassing for all the players. The NBA hopefully can get something done here where they could get these guys registered. They ain't going nowhere, so I think every team rep needs to make that like one of their main objectives before people leave, to get every player registered to vote, because it's one thing to talk about it, but if you aren't registered, why should I listen to you anyway? So they need to really be about it and get registered before they could talk about it.
And that makes a lot of sense. And the other thing I wanted to follow up on is you're talking about concrete action. And Ramona, I thought this was so interested in some of the reporting that you've done over the past couple of days. The idea that the Milwaukee Bucks, when they were sitting in the locker room after the very beginning of this, when they first decided not to walk out onto the court, they got on the phone, thanks to Mark Lasry, the Bucks team owner, with officials in the Wisconsin government who informed them what they, of course, wouldn't know as basketball players. It is not their job to follow professional to follow political legislation, that there was a bill sitting in the Wisconsin state legislature that would do a lot of the things they want to do. In fact, nationally, there is a bill to recharge the Voting Rights Act that's sitting at the doorstep of the Senate that the House of Representatives already passed. And some of this legislation is already there. It's in place for what they want, but it hasn't been passed. It hasn't been activated. So how are you seeing players get more involved on that score of not just saying, hey, we need change, but really actually becoming super educated on where the change points could be?
Boy, it's amazing what we ask of these guys, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I was on the phone with Mandela Barnes, the lieutenant governor there in Wisconsin, and he was explaining about the police reform bill that the governor of Wisconsin has proposed. He's called a special session of the legislature. He said it's been sitting there for 2 months. I didn't know that, Rachel. Did you?
Sure, no, absolutely
Are you
not.
up on politics at that level?
Not at the Wisconsin
Right?
state
I mean,
legislature. I would
like,
never
hey,
expect the Bucks to be, but to your point, now they are,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and now they are. And, Andre Iguodala in that meeting brought up to all the players. He said, look, California has a landmark police reform bill that's set to be voted on fairly soon. Dig into that. See what you want to go campaign for, see what you want to dig into. But, boy, I mean, like, it just keeps coming back to this for me is, it's not the NBA's job to change the world, okay? Like Doc Rivers just said this in his press conference as well. I mean, I pay attention to the news, Rachel. I know you do, Mark, Perk. But, like, this is a lot. They got to play basketball games. They have to speak on subjects like this. And now they're supposed to dig in and understand state politics and how to get things passed at every single level. That is a lot to take on. And yet, if they really want change, if this is what they are organizing to do, it's not enough to just say we need change. It's not enough to hashtag something on Twitter or speak out about it. You gotta take the next steps. You have to roll up your sleeves and dig into the legal morass. And I think that is what the players are trying to do in certain spots, and they've been real targeted about that in this statement today.